One of the first things that happened is we, or in my opinion, hired two folks who have been outstanding at what they do, not without taking some criticisms in the process, but have really made a big difference in Tennessee. Hired Kevin Huffman to be our education commissioner, former Teach for America executive, and then Chris Barbick to lead our Achievement School District. The Achievement School District in Tennessee is focused on the bottom 5% schools. It's modeled after the Recovery School District down in Louisiana, for those of you who are familiar with that. But it basically meant the state would take over the bottom 5% performing schools. We hired Chris to do that because he had started and led a group of charter schools in Houston called Yes Prep. Those of you who aren't familiar with it, Yes Prep, I think, has 10 or 12 different campuses. And for something like 10 years in a row, 100% of their kids had gone on to college. And of those kids who had gone, and of those kids, fully 80% had completed. Well, there are some wonderful, expensive private K through 12 institutions in this country that can't say that. And what Chris and Kevin both brought to the table for us was a very much of a no excuses mentality and a belief that every child can learn. So not long after I was elected, I started doing a little research, and I found that almost every governor had also said, well, I want to be the education governor in Tennessee, going back for 100 plus years. And yet our results showed that we were still lagging behind. And so I wanted to try to figure out what had happened there. We did, and it's obviously a question of can you do enough, but we did then, in a very tough time, prioritize funding for education. I was elected in 2010 with a lot of other brand new governors, and we all came into a very similar circumstance. When the recession hit, or 2007, 2008, every state's revenues went down. Then the federal government came in, remember, with the stimulus plan that was passed that sent money to a lot of places, but one of those was to state governments. And state governments used a lot of that for ongoing recurring funding, even though that was one-time money, if you will. So a lot of new governors came into the same situation I was in, that some one-time money that we'd been relying on was going away. One of the things that Tennessee did, and working with our legislatures, we're one of the very few states that didn't cut funding. Remember, we were one of only 6 states that consistently increased education funding as a percentage of our budget, and we had the 4th largest increase in education spending compared to the rest of the country. Then this past year, we got some of the very best news that we could get. When the NAEP results were announced, the National Assessment for Education Progress, Tennessee was ranked the #1 state in the country for education improvement. We had basically gone from being in the 40s when it came to the 50 states to being in the 30s. Well, we don't really want to brag about just being in the 30s. When you move up basically 10 places and you have the biggest improvement of any state ever, we think it is noteworthy. But I would also mention that that historic progress didn't happen by accident. Several things came together. Primary amongst them was the change in performance evaluations that we talked about. Again, the bill regarding that passed before we got here, but we implemented them and worked really hard not to back up. It's safe to say that there was quite a bit of angst. While Scott introduced me by saying, while I'm sure he has his critics, that was a very, very safe statement, and they are legion. But there was a lot of pushback. If you do this, we're going to have mass resignations from our teachers, and our teachers leaving the profession are going to go way up. Well, our numbers showed that actually our teachers didn't leave the profession in any different numbers than they had before. Now, the teachers who graded out lower on the evaluations left in a little higher numbers, but overall, teachers didn't leave any quicker.
And I was wondering how you think the Achievement School District has contributed to the successes of Tennessee.
It's early. We're really in the 2nd year of implementation, but I think it's, if you ask me one of the things that I'm most excited about as governor, I think Achievement School District is at the very top of the list because we have some incredible people working there who are committed to this idea, again, that every child can learn. If you're in the bottom 5% of schools in Tennessee, your school's not achieving at a very high level at all. But I was in Memphis about 3 weeks ago, and I'm in a class, and the class changed, and so I'm talking to the teacher who I'm guessing was late 20s. And I said, "Where are you from?" She said, "Sacramento, California." I said, what are you doing here? I mean, I'm really glad you're here, because you could tell she was a great teacher. You know, spent about 20 minutes in her class before it emptied, and you could tell she was great. So why are you here? She said, because Memphis has become teacher town. And there's more focus on great teachers coming to Memphis right now than anywhere else I know. Now, these are her words, not mine. And that, I think, has the ability to change, take those bottom 5% of the schools and take what Chris Barbick's goal is for those schools to be in the top 25%. Now, you might say, that's an audacious goal. There's no way you go from the bottom 5 to the top 25, but it's Chris's goal, and I think it's a great one, because those kids deserve the same opportunity, and they're going to do it by having those schools have great teachers. So I can't wait to see 5 years from now what the results look like there. I'm really that anticipatory of it.
Governor, I'm wondering how Tennessee is doing in terms of racial and income integration in schools, and whether you believe that is still a value in American education.
Sure, definitely believe it's a value. So I wish I could give you some exact data in terms of what our integration mix looks like for Tennessee students. I can't say that. I think what you would see if you came and hung around our Department of Education for a while is a real focus on the achievement gap between minority students, and a real focus on improving that. Wouldn't surprise anybody that the bottom 5% of our schools have a lot heavier minority tilt to them, and I think that's one of the things that will, as we work to improve the bottom 5% schools, to make certain that that's not true. It's that those aren't the schools that rank the lowest in Tennessee. So I wish I should know more data about, you know, what's the integration mix look like now compared to the past. I'll do my best to find that out. Like I said, for us, I think you'd see the key focus has been on the achievement gap piece of that.
While we're in one of the country's best schools of education, you have some in your state which have a pretty horrible reputation. Are you doing anything, can you as governor do anything to raise the level of quality of teacher training in the state?
We really are. It's the old model where schools of education had the lowest bars of entry and the highest graduation rates, I think, is changing in Tennessee as we talk more about the quality provided. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily like using test results to evaluate everything, but I think it's been eye-opening to see the test results come out, because we can track by education institution what the test results are. And by the way, we're even looking at doing that for everything for school leaders, for principals as well, to track that. So I think one of the things we've tried to do is to work with all those schools of education to say, because we're expecting a lot more out of students and expecting a whole lot more out of teachers, what are you doing to adjust to the new climate? And we've had that and continue to have that conversation with every school.